Hello, viewers. So, as we say goodbye to WandaVision and wait patiently for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I want to take this time in between to revisit my favorite MCU film, Captain America Civil War. But I want to do so with a specific purpose in mind. In addition to just being a fantastic film, I was genuinely surprised by just how much it seemed like Civil War laid the groundwork for both WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So, here are three reasons why you should give Captain America Civil War a watch in between your final viewing of WandaVision and before you start watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, the kitchen scene in Civil War, where Vision is cooking for Wanda, not only explains why Vision is able to see past, Wanda's potential scariness to the real her. Now that I think about it, a synthetic amygdala sounds pretty awesome. But it actually foreshadows the final episode of WandaVision as well. Let me explain. Wanda says to Vision, I used to think of myself one way, but after this, and she's referring to her powers, I'm something else. I'm still me, I think. That's the paradox of identity. If something changes, can it still retain its original claim to its identity? Is Wanda still Wanda once she receives her powers? Now, it's Vision in this scene who supplies Wanda with the most meaningful answer to her question. He says, I don't really know what this is, meaning the Mind Stone, but he knows that it's a part of him. It's mysterious and he wishes to understand it, but he accepts the fact that something can be both exterior, mysterious, and yet still a part of your identity. Flash forward to the last episode of WandaVision, and we get that wonderful scene where the red and white Vision are trying to utilize the paradox of Theseus or Theseus's ship in order to figure out who can lay claim to the identity of being Vision. This is essentially what Wanda was doing earlier, thinking about how can something change and yet still retain its original identity. But it's Wanda in WandaVision who supplies Vision with the answer to the question. You'll recall that Vision at the very end of the series asks Wanda, What am I? And she says, You're a part of the Mind Stone that lives within me. You're my grief, my happiness, but more than anything, you're my love. Wanda finally understands that something can be exterior and mysterious, and yet a major part of your identity that you have to accept. So, the kitchen scene from Civil War provides a beautifully rich background of information from which we can really begin to pinpoint Wanda's quest to understand her identity as it pertains to her powers. It's also just a wonderfully constructed scene that showcases the potential for their romantic chemistry. After rewatching Civil War for this review, I came to a bit of a realization. You see, up to this point, I always thought of Sebastian Stan's acting as just a bit too stiff for me. Even when he was trying to be loose and, Steve Rogers' friend, I still always found it to be just a little odd and out of pace. However, it's Anthony Mackie, not necessarily Chris Evans, who seems to get the best out of Sebastian Stan in terms of pacing and timing on screen. Now, a big part of this has to do with clever writing for the characters. Just about everybody around Winter Soldier either, has pity for him or fear or they're angry at him. The Falcon, however, he sees him more as like a tragic annoyance. He's a baby crying in the booth behind you as you're trying to eat your Cinestack pancakes from IHOP. Sorry, I went into a dark place there. They looked really good. Falcon and the Winter Soldier showcased tremendous comedic timing as a duo and a natural connection in terms of their dialogue pacing with each other in Civil War. Whether it's Bucky asking Sam to move his seat up in the car and Sam deadpanning, no. Or it's the scene where they're getting beaten up by Spider Man until Falcon sends the web slinger off on a free trip to Nowheresville, and they're writhing on the floor, and Bucky says, "You couldn't have done that earlier?" And Sam just replies, "I hate you." It was hysterical in the movie theater. It's still really funny now when I watch it, however many years later now. And it's likely that this movie is what was actually the model for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series in terms of tone, not just characters, but actual tone. And it makes me excited for the possibilities of seeing these two together again. Now, second, let's talk about the villain here for a moment. Helmut Zemo is not super. He's not Thanos. If he snaps his fingers, nothing happens. What he is a fairly normal guy. Well, he's a former Sokovian military intelligence officer, which is pretty normal, I suppose, in this universe. Anyway, he's a guy who just resents the fact that his family's death is being labeled an acceptable number of casualties. But you see, it's the very fact that he's not super that makes him so intriguing. You'll recall back in the first Avengers film, Loki's staff is able to spark a bit of division within the Avengers, and then their egos feed the rest of their, yearning to fight with each other. But Baron Zemo is able to do that with no magic and really no might. And that's pretty amazing. In a sense, he's a lot like the Joker. Bear with me. I know some of you are like, what are you? No, he's not like the Joker. Well, but just wait a second. He's like the Joker in the sense that on paper, it looks like he'd be really easy to just kill and get rid of. But it's the process by which the Joker works that makes him one of the most difficult villains to deal with in the DC universe. You start to realize that there is a process behind their thoughts, and that it's likely that their thought process is a lot better than yours. I love the idea of bringing back, Helmut Zemo or Baron Zemo here to be the main villain for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because Bucky is going to have to find some forgiveness for himself and deal with those demons that he continually carries with him. And yet at the same time, Falcon has so little patience for him that he's not going to allow Bucky to just be the Winter Soldier and stay in the cold. That was a joke. Probably not a good one. I apologize. Finally, Civil War has one of the most interesting philosophical questions concerning good versus evil that we've seen in any of the MCU films. The split between Team Captain America and Team Iron Man is not like, Team Jacob versus Team Edward from Twilight. This choice actually has consequences here. The question really has to do with whether or not you believe in the concept of the greater good. Captain America has a strong belief in the definitions of right, wrong, good, and evil, and they transcend any one individual perspective. In other words, for him, it's not about what he believes is right and wrong. It's that there is right and wrong, and you need to pursue evil based on those definitions. Now, when you believe in the concept of greater good, you have to invariably accept the fact that evil is going to happen while you're trying to pursue that greater good. In other words, it's a choice, as in you choose to address the greater good of the choices before you. That means that other choices tend to get either left behind or just don't receive as much focus. It's why Captain America tells Wanda in Civil War, we try to save as many people as we can. Sometimes that doesn't mean everybody. But if we can't find a way to live with that, maybe next time nobody gets saved. Now, on Team Stark, the greater good is seen as a much more dangerous concept because it narrows the field of vision and creates blind spots from which more bad things can occur. In Stark's world, you have to put too much faith in the idea that because Captain America is good, he can always discern what is right. Stark is a man of science, and therefore, the more data points you can collect before you have to make your decisions, the more likely you are to make accurate decisions about what needs to be addressed and in what order. So, what's the drawback of Stark's view? Well, the more contacts or data you collect, the more you open yourself up to potentially being vulnerable to corrupt data or corrupt individuals. And therefore, many of your decisions, and even in some cases, almost all of it, can be corrupt as well. So by the end of Civil War, you're left with more than just a choice of preference, right? Do you prefer Captain America or do you prefer Iron Man? You actually have to face an ethical dilemma or an ethical question of how do we best fight back against evil? Do you go for the greater good and accept the fact that bad things are going to happen around you? Or do you try to build a more accurate decision making process by collecting more data, but live with the possibility that your information might be corrupt? It's a fantastic question. Let me know in the comments below, where do you sit on this? Are you Team Captain America or Team Iron Man? All right, so I hope that I've at least piqued your interest enough that you'll go back and watch Captain America Civil War in between your final viewing of WandaVision and before you begin Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'll be creating a Falcon and Winter Soldier watch companion series just like I did with WandaVision, and I'd love to have you come along with me. So, if I've piqued your interest here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up. If I was boring as all heck and I made you feel bad because you don't have Cinestack pancakes either, give it a thumbs down. Either way, I hope you have a great day.